What's going on, guys? It's John back. Been a while since I've put a video up. We've been insanely busy at the house. We went back up north to visit my family. We were there for about a week, stayed with my sister for half of the time, and then stayed with my aunt and my cousin for the second half of the time, basically. Um, so we had that was like a crazy week and a half. And then we came back, and my daughter got very sick. She was sick for a few days, and then my wife got sick because of that. And long story short, with life thrown in there and a full-time job and all that stuff, it's been a while since I've made a video. I threw like a short clip on of just like me messing around and singing a song or whatever, but nothing, regarding like continuing my story or anything pertaining to mental health or anything like that. So I wanted to throw something on here quick. I'm going through a bunch of ideas that I have as far as obviously finishing up my story, getting to me like basically to where I am now. And then I had a bunch of other ideas too that I was going to be posting in regards to mental health and different strategies that I deploy or try to, and things that help, things that haven't. So that was basically kind of like the game plan. But I wanted to come on and make something right now because I thought it was extremely important. And when things come to mind that I think would be beneficial to people, I'll probably come on and do short videos just to kind of get my stuff out of my head and out in the universe, if you will. So a thing I've been thinking about a lot, and a lot of people that probably struggle with mental health probably have a similar problem. But one of the biggest struggles that I have personally is with rumination. So if anybody doesn't know what rumination is, it's essentially taking like 98% of the time, it's a bad memory of your past, whether it be a bad relationship or an event where you weren't necessarily acting as the best human in the world, something that you did, something painful, some decision that was made, or some sort of occurrence that is most likely negative. And essentially what rumination is you take that item, that thought or that memory or that historical image, and you replay it, and you replay it over and over and over and over and over again. And what ends up happening is a lot of times, one thing people don't realize about memories is you tell yourself the same story over and over and over again. The story slowly gets edited over time until you get to the point where the memory that you're thinking about is not even necessarily the memory of what actually happened. Especially with someone like myself, like I said, I struggle big time with my memory. I really just have images. I don't really have memories, if you will. I mean, there's some things that I can think about in pretty good detail, but there's a lot of things that I have like essentially no recollection of outside of an image. But then there's other things, negative things that I don't have long, detailed memories of, but they had historical significance in my life, and I replay them every day. And it's a loop, and it's a painful loop. And I see that what it tends to happen most when I'm in actually a really good mood. It's almost as if my brain is telling me that I don't deserve to be in a good mood. So because of that, I have to offset my good mood with some sort of terrible thought. So I'll go into my little backpack of terrible thoughts and I'll pull something out. And then the next thing you know, 20 minutes have gone by and I've played it back in my head. And it usually spiderwebs. So it starts off, like I'll give you a perfect example. So one of the things that I ruminate on is a previous relationship that, I mean, obviously ended poorly. It was young love, if you will, and it was a lot of it was my fault, and her fault as well. But when you're thinking about something that happened essentially 20 years ago, because that's how long it happened. Actually, more than that, maybe 21 years ago. Um, First and foremost, the story that you're telling is not what actually happened. I mean, it's a decent description of it, but it's not 100% accurate. And especially with someone like myself, uh, a lot of it is probably way more negative than when it actually happened in real time. So what I have a tendency to do is I will pick this situation and I will play it back in my head over and over and over again. And it's almost like I'm punishing myself for how I behaved, I guess. Now, keep in mind, I'm 42 now. Oh, I was like 21 at the time. And I don't know about anybody else, but when I was 21, I was in a terrible place mentally, financially, spiritually, pretty much anything you can think of. I also didn't have a father figure that was pointing me in the correct direction, right? I didn't have anybody saying, "Well, no, don't do that. That's not a good thing to do." Now, obviously, I had a brain in my head, but it was a underdeveloped one, and it was also one that was suffering from trauma, or still dealing with trauma. So I didn't have any direction. I didn't have anybody really telling me, yeah, no, that's probably not a good idea. I had to figure it out by trial and error. So there's a lot of things that I did in my past that I do regret, but at the same time, I'm trying really hard in the present day to give myself some grace, because, well, I mean, you're not who you are 20 years later, right? Hopefully you've changed for the better, and I definitely have. um, but I think the ruminating thing, the reason why I bring it up is that I think it's a big deal. I think a lot of people struggle with it, especially if you have mental health issues and depression, anxiety, those types of things. It heightens all of that stuff. It's very hard to be in a good mood or have a positive outlook on the way things are going, even if you're going in the right direction, when you've got this backpack that you walk around with that you can just pull stuff out of, and it takes you from a good mood to a terrible one. And it's done instantaneously. So there's a couple things that I wanted to touch on to potentially help some people that maybe struggle with this. And this isn't going to be applicable to everybody, but from my understanding and the research that I've done, it's pretty common when you're dealing with trauma or loss or just dysfunctional family, whatever the case may be. Rumination is fairly common, because it's almost like when you're going through survival mode, especially when you're a kid, your goal, basically, you're just trying to get to the next day, right? And naturally, we're wired to survive as it is. That's the human goal, right? Is to survive the next day, run away from things that can kill us, or hide from things that can kill us, and go to sleep and wake up the next day, and hopefully we're still alive. And that's at the end of the day, that's the ultimate goal. We're built for survival. That's one of the main characteristics that we have. So when you think about that from a mental perspective, the stuff that you're going back and pulling from was at a time, a much worse time, but it was also a time where you're not the same person that you are now. So a couple of the things that have helped me is when I go back and I pull that memory, the first thing I tell myself is, when it starts playing in my head, inevitably, because it's going to, the first thing I tell myself is, you're not that person anymore. Yeah, I mean, like, you're in the same body, but from a mental standpoint, from a decision making standpoint, like it's not even close, right? The stuff that I was doing at 21 and the stuff that I do now are completely different. I mean, it's not even in the same universe. So that's the first thing, is that's not me. I'm not defined by that. And I think that's extremely important because, like I said, when you're going back and your only goal is to survive, well, your brain doesn't have any recollection of where you are now opposed to where you were 20 years ago. So your brain doesn't know, well, this person's 20 years older, they're a grown up now. Your brain is just, it's programmed the way that it's programmed. It doesn't have any concept of, your maturity or how you've progressed. It gets programmed a certain way based on trauma or things that have happened in your past, and it remains that way because it doesn't develop the way you develop as a human being. So when something is ingrained in it, when something is coded very deeply inside of it, it's not gonna all of a sudden stop because you're 20 years older. Your brain doesn't work like that because, again, your brain doesn't have a concept of time. Your brain is just doing what it thinks is the best thing to be doing in order for you to survive. That's essentially its only purpose. So it's going and it's pulling this stuff back from 20 years ago, and it's thinking that it's still happening in the same exact time that it did 20 years ago, because there's no way to differentiate, right? So that's the first thing, is you have to tell yourself, that's not me. I'm not that person anymore. Yeah, the decisions I made, and again, might not even be the truth, right? We're telling ourselves, we're playing back memories, and we're telling ourselves stories about things that we don't even know if they're accurate. We think they're accurate, but the reality is we can't go back and actually play that memory back in real time from a third person perspective and say, oh, well, it didn't exactly go like this, and this. That's not actually what happened. What actually happened was this, and this. Now, it could make it worse. It could make it better, but it's irrelevant. What you need to realize is you're not defined by that. And again, I'm not saying that this is something that I've perfected, because it's definitely not. And it's extremely difficult, and I struggle with this. When I say on a daily basis, I literally mean a daily basis. Okay, so that's the first thing. You're not defined by that. All right. The second thing you have to realize is that I don't want to sound like pie in the sky, right? But I'm a pretty big believer in not necessarily everything happens for a reason, but things that have already happened that you can't change, whether they be good or bad things, decisions that were made, paths that you chose, they got you to where you are right now, right? And for the majority of people, I would imagine, especially, and again, I don't necessarily know if anybody's gonna watch any of these videos, right? But if you've been sitting here watching me ramble for 14 minutes now, then you probably have a better handle on, your mental well-being than you did in the past, or at least you're trying to have a better handle on it, which is why you're, listening to somebody like me who has experience in this area talk about this type of stuff, right? So even making the effort to try to improve is a significant thing, right? You got to pat yourself on the back for that. So what I'm getting at is you're probably in a better spot than you were in at that time. So that's not a definition of you, and that's also not you were in a completely different headspace. So that's another thing that I tell myself too, is all of those decisions that I made at that exact moment, I was working with the information and the experience that I had. But the way to look at it from a positive side is, okay, well, yeah, maybe that's not the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Maybe I'm a little disappointed with how I acted or the decision I chose to make. But the reality is that decision was made. I can't change it. But it did get to me to where I am right now. So again, not necessarily everything happens for a reason, but I am where I am now because of that decision. Whether it was a massive decision or a minuscule decision, it doesn't matter. All of the things that you've done throughout your life, choices, decisions, all those things, the reality is they've got you to the point that you are now. They all had some sort of an impact on why you are here this exact moment, right? And if your situation is better, or at least in the process of being better than it was back then, well, then that's actually a positive, because if all that stuff didn't happen, then you wouldn't be in the spot that you're in now. And I don't think that's like trickery or anything. That's just something that I use to put a different spin on it. Because when you're coming from a place of loss, and when you're coming from a place of just bad things happening over and over and over and over again, it's very easy to think that those things that occurred aren't necessarily because of you, but that's kind of like what you're worth, right? Because if you go through your entire life with a bunch of bad things happening, and like, look, life is hard. It's super difficult. It's like incredibly difficult. You're going to be thrown stuff that you're going to have no idea how to handle, and you're going to have to think on the fly, and it's hard. And even when you're doing everything right, if you're someone like me, you still feel like you're doing a bunch of stuff wrong. So it's tough. It's a tough battle. It's worth it. With the relationships that you build, and like, especially if you're like a father like myself, and you have you have kids that you can look at, and that like that is a product of the hard work and stuff that you've put in. It's definitely worth it, but it's tough, man. It's a struggle. So it's important to use these little tricks or tools or anything that can kind of get you in a better place. So that's just something that I wanted to touch on. The other thing too that I think is important is what you don't realize is when you're playing those thoughts back over and over again, the more you play them back, the more wired they become. The more prevalent they are, but also the more ingrained they are. The more that you believe them that they're actually fact, or the more that you are subconsciously associating yourself or your worth or your definition of yourself with those things. So what I've come to realize is that when I use these tricks to kind of spin it in a positive way, it takes a while, but you'll slowly start noticing that the things that you're ruminating about, a lot of times they'll drop off through enough hard work. You'll kind of reprogram yourself, and those things won't loop as frequently, because what you're essentially doing is your brain's not like this static, unchangeable thing. You can rewire it in certain instances. So if something's popping in your head that's negative, that you usually dwell on for a long period of time, if that idea comes into your head and then you instantly swap that idea out with something positive, it could be like the simplest thing in the world. So like, for example, when I start thinking of that terrible relationship, as soon as it pops in my head, I'll instantly replace it with something positive. It can be anything. It's like, man, I can't wait to play basketball on Saturday with my buddies, or man, I can't wait to bring the kids to school tomorrow morning. Something positive, something that I can hang my hat on. What that does is it replaces that bad memory loop with that one instance of the positive thing. And you'll notice the more you do that, your brain is not going to go back to those negative things kind of like a conveyor belt, because you're replacing every time that conveyor belt spins around and that negative idea would be implemented into your head, you're replacing it with something positive. And what happens is eventually the bad items, you run out of inventory, right? Your brain gets rewired, and you're not just running those negative things on repeat anymore. Now they're getting replaced with something positive. And if you do that over and over and over and over again, eventually you don't have to do it as frequently because the bad stuff's not popping in your head as often. And it actually makes it a little bit easier to manage. Now, I'm not saying it's ever going to go away because it's definitely not. But at least it's definitely gonna lower the volume of it a lot, like significantly. So that is probably the biggest trick that I've used, and they all kind of, can be used together. It pops in your head. That was 20 years ago, man. Like that doesn't define me. That's not who I am now. And also, like, the thing that I'm thinking about right now, I mean, yeah, that had to happen, but it got me where I am today. So, like, that's cool. Like, why are we even thinking about this? Why are we even discussing this? And then before you know it, you're on autopilot. That stuff's popping in and it's getting swapped out real quick with something else, something good. And it keeps you in a good mood, and it keeps you in a positive disposition, because what you're essentially trying to do is you're like, wow, I've got a lot of things going for me. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, things can be better in certain areas. Yeah, like, I mean, as far as like materialistic things go, like, I don't really care about that. So I'm not thinking about like, man, I wish I had a bigger house, or man, I wish I had a nicer car. Like, full disclosure, I don't give a shit about any of that stuff. But I mean, there's always going to be things you're like, well, man, I wish we were able to take an extra family vacation, every year, or something like that. So yeah, I mean, things could always be better. But the reality is that, like, the spot that you're in is probably significantly better than the spot that you used to be in. And if you can stay in a positive mindset, and if you can learn how to replace those negative thoughts with positive ones, what's going to happen is you're going to be in a better mood more often. And when you're in a better mood more often, you're more productive, right? You feel better about yourself. Next thing you know, you're exercising a little bit more. You're getting more work done during the day. You don't even notice necessarily that it's happening, but eventually you'll look back and you'll be like, man, I've gotten a lot accomplished the last couple of weeks. And it's because you're not sitting there dwelling on bullshit. You know what I mean? Damaging things that are just getting you in the mood, in a negative mood. And the problem is again, when you go through all that stuff in the past, like, you associate that with your worth. So the second you're in a good spot, and the second you feel like you have something to be thankful for, or you're in a positive, good mood, like, your brain's like, well, you don't deserve that, so we need to go grab something real quick. Like, we've got to put something in, that's got to be replaced. Like, we can't. That's not gonna fly. Like, you're a piece of shit. You're supposed to feel like a piece of shit. We've got to put that in there real quick, because you're delusional right now. Like, there's no way that, and that's real. Like, that is real. So just because your brain thinks it doesn't mean it's true. You do deserve to be in a good mood. You know what I mean? You do deserve to have good things in life. And if you can be more strategic about replacing those negative thoughts with positive ones, you'll notice you'll be in a positive mood for a longer period of time, and certain things are going to take care of themselves. Like I said, a lot of the stuff is going to get replaced. A lot of the negative thoughts will get replaced with the positive ones. It's not going to happen overnight, but you'll notice if you keep doing it over and over again, before you know it, you'll be like, man, I'm in a way better mood than I used to be. And I don't think about those things anymore. Where did all those memories go? They're still back there, trust me. They're in the filing cabinet. The only difference is now is they're not coming out anymore. Because the loop, you turn the conveyor belt off. The loop's been shut off. So, but yeah, I mean, I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but that's essentially, I got my point across. That's what I wanted to go over. Just some tricks that I use for, like, rumination. And again, I'm going to touch on, like, a lot of different things, a lot of different strategies, a lot of different angles that I try to deploy to try to, just live the most grateful, happy, abundant life possible. Because at the end of the day, I mean, we're on the planet for a finite period of time. And some people, it's your choice. I mean, you can choose to be miserable forever, or you can choose to try to fight that and see what's on the other side. And a lot of times, what's on the other side um, is underestimated. You know what I mean? It's definitely underestimated, and it's not. Like I said, it's not perfect. You're still gonna get sad. Bad stuff's still gonna happen. You're still gonna lose people that you love. You're still gonna make bad decisions. Um, but increasing your quality of life even by a little bit, when you extrapolate that over a 40, 50-year period of time, that's a huge difference between how you feel on a daily basis. Like, it's massive. So just something to think about. Wanted to throw this up. But yeah, I look forward to making some more stuff. I'm definitely going to be more active now. We're back home. Things have kind of like settled down. There's no football on yet. I'm a huge football fan, but there's no football on yet, so I don't have that to distract me. But yeah, again, just understanding that you're fighting the most important battle every day, and that's the battle with your mind, right? And you can let it take over take over your life, or you can take ownership of the fact that you have control over it. And again, it's not easy, and it takes practice, and I haven't perfected it by any means, but I'm just going over some tools that have helped me. Someone that struggles with this type of stuff on a daily basis, and I thought that it would be beneficial for you guys. So yeah, hope you appreciate it, and we'll talk soon. I look forward to making the next one. Take care, guys.